Hey team, welcome to It's More Than Just a Game, NIL Insights into Player Development. I'm Thomas Rowe, co-founder and co-host of tonight's webinar, co-founder of Blueprint to Blue Chip with Aaron Sarles at the top of the screen, also the co-founder and CEO. And tonight we are joined again by our friend, Johnny Perkins. Johnny, thanks so much for joining us. We're super excited to have you here.
It's an honor, Aaron and Thomas, and the audience. Thanks for this opportunity. Certainly is both a pleasure and a privilege. And I'm excited because there is a lot of things going on in the sports world, particularly college sports, that I'm really excited to talk about this evening.
Oh, questions are already coming in. Are you guys going to talk about Brendan Sorsby? Yes, team, we are. Hang tight, hold your horses.
Yes.
We're going to get to everything under the sun. This webinar is scheduled to go for 23 hours, so I hope you guys have your popcorn and your blanket. I'm kidding.
Well, I might have to throw it.
Yeah, he's got his lid on. He's got his yellow flag, and he also has his whistle. Team, I'm Thomas Rogue, co-founder of Blueprint to Blue Chip. I'm a sports performance coach, and I basically, for 25 years, I focused on bigger, faster, stronger until I met Erin, and she said, what do you do about the character, integrity, and discipline? And I rudely and immaturely and naively said, that's not my problem. And she said, actually, it is your problem. What are you going to do about the athlete beyond the game? And that's when Erin and I joined forces. That's my quick introduction. I'm going to turn it over to Erin. She's going to give an introduction, and then she is going to introduce Johnny, and then we're going to get into the College World Series. Erin, take it away.
Hey, everybody. I come into this space, number one, as a mom. So I have two athletes that are competitive and in high school and looking to go to the next level. And then my background is I've spent 20 plus years in corporate America, and my focus is really on human growth and ensuring these young men and women know that their identity is well beyond the game that they're playing. It's not attached to their performance, and we want to focus on building incredible leaders for the future for every organization, company, and just to make great human beings. So that's why I'm so passionate about this space. And we are joined by, I think, one of the best in the NIL space, and a dear friend of ours now, Johnny Perkins. He's an umpire, a referee. He has a resume that will blow everybody away, but he brings such a unique lens. And tonight we're just going to have so much fun diving into all of it. So with that, Johnny, why don't you tell our audience who you are?
Well, first of all, I just want to remind everyone, there are no NIL experts. Remember that. If anyone says they are, you're going to blow the whistle and you're going to throw the flag on them, because there are no NIL experts. And I really am excited about these conversations. These are more of a dialogue than a monologue. It's really what we want to do. And words like integrity, character, discipline, wisdom, those are key words that are filtered throughout this entire dialogue and discussion about college sports, name, image, likeness, revenue sharing, student athletes, and player development, student athlete services that we're going to talk about. But I'm excited because I bring a unique lens to this discussion about name, image, and likeness, revenue sharing, player development, student athlete services, having experience in the public and private sector. And interestingly enough, the public sector's engagement now, government speaking in this area with legislation and other regulatory matters. My background is in those types of issues: contract management, contract development, contract negotiation, regulatory compliance, financial planning. I've managed over both multi-billion-dollar budgets. Legislative affairs, dealt with working through legislation, drafting legislation, testifying for it, negotiating. I worked for a labor union for 3 years, so I have deep-rooted experience in negotiations, both on the labor and management side, and that's a topic we'll get into when we talk about the Protect College Sports Act shortly. But I really bring that lens, in addition, is that sports officiating lens. Basketball, baseball, football, as Aaron mentioned. So I bring a different perspective, a different lens on the field, in the gym, on the court, in the arena to this perspective, and been working with student athletes and families and talking with coaches and athletic directors and compliance administrators about what's going on with name, image, and likeness and revenue sharing, and a lot of the challenges they face, and working with pliable marketing and some of the challenges we have with our student athletes and dealing with some of these issues with contracts, compliance, and financial planning, which are areas of expertise that I bring. So I'm excited to kick this off with, as a baseball umpire, college softball and baseball World Series. And if you all want me to, I can jump right in because I have a great story that I think will get this started, and it kind of sets the tone, I think, for this whole dialogue.
Absolutely, Johnny. The floor is yours. Keep going.
Thank you. So with all the, I don't want to use the word chaos, but I'm going to use it. With all the things going on outside of sports, all the different issues, and we don't have to go through them. We all know what they are in society today. Here's the thing that's happening tonight that I'm really excited about. And doggone it, I wish I was back east in Washington because I would have tried to find a way to be one of the umpires on the field for this game tonight. Believe it or not, it's an annual event that our members of Congress have. It's an annual baseball game. And it's tonight in Washington, D.C. And with all the things going on in the world and in politics and things with college sports and all these different legislative discussions and executive order from the president, our members of Congress are going to take some time tonight and play a baseball game. And I've seen it on the field where baseball and sports brings us together. And I'm really proud that our leadership in this country is doing that. And so one of the fun things about this is the Democrats haven't won since 2019. So they're and this isn't a party thing, but they haven't won in 6 years. The Republicans are riding high on the 6-year. Well, you guys haven't beat us in 6 years. And so there's that conversation that's going on. The manager for the Democrats, Congresswoman Loretta Sanchez out of California, Southern California, a little bit to the south of me, she's letting them have it, saying, we got your number. We're going to come after you. I have a pitching staff and a bullpen that's going to shut you down. And I love that. But then here's the one I love the most. So she's talking this up, and the Republicans say, well, guess what? We got a guy named Mark Teixeira. And for those of you that don't know who Mark Teixeira is, ladies and gentlemen, he played for the New York Yankees when they won the World Series. He's a 14-year Major League Baseball player. And you're probably wondering, Johnny, how in the world is Mark Teixeira playing on the Republican congressional baseball team? Because he's running for Congress in Texas and won the primary. And the Democrats are claiming, wait a minute, foul, because he hasn't been elected yet. Well, he won the primary, so the Republicans are saying, no, he's on our team. So I love it. Mark Teixeira is going to play for the Republicans tonight, former New York Yankee, nickname is Tex, running in the 21st Congressional District in Texas. Doesn't matter what party you are. This is going to be a fun night there. And again, like I said, if I lived in D.C., I would have tried to find a way to get on the field and some form of umpiring, because I think this is going to be a fun night. And this is what sports all about, where people with diverging interests can come together and just have a lot of fun. So I wanted to share that because I thought that was kind of a cool story, the way to kick this off. The Women's College World Series, you got to take a breath. Wow. Did we see some of the most amazing female athletes in this country and probably the world? We absolutely did. And when you look at the two teams that played for the championship, which, by the way, Texas and Texas Tech, and congratulations to the Lady Longhorns, who won it for a second consecutive year. But they made it to the championship game. What's incredible about that, particularly Texas's story? This is a double elimination tournament. And I've umpired a lot of double elimination tournaments, and many of you probably participated in them. When you lose the first game, it's a tough road to come back. Well, guess what? The University of Texas lost the first game to Tennessee 6-3. So they immediately went into losers bracket, which meant they couldn't lose again. So it took them, they had to win 4 games to get to the championship series with Texas Tech. 2 of those 4, they had to beat, guess who? The University of Tennessee, who beat them earlier. So Texas and Texas Tech getting to the World Series for college softball was incredible. Of course, Texas won. They won 2. It was 2 or 3. They won the first 2 games, and then that was the end of it. But what's amazing about this, Texas and Texas Tech spent probably the most money in NIL dollars for their softball players. This goes to show NIL is not just about football and basketball. It's also about what's going on in women's softball, particularly Texas Tech. And by the way, Texas Tech, they are known as the villains They are known as the dark side, the Darth Vaders, if you will, because they went out in the transfer portal and picked up a bunch of great players. They understood the transfer
Mhm.
portal, got some great players. But then they have a pitcher who's incredible. You probably all heard of her, Nija Kennedy. Kennedy was paid the last 2 years a little under $2.5 million in NIL money. She's the first college softball player to sign $1 million NIL deal
Wow.
in the history of college softball. She came from Stanford. Texas Tech went after when she was at Stanford. She played her last 2 years at Texas Tech. She had a 1.39 ERA. Anything under 1.50, I mean, Shohei Ohtani right now, I think, is like 0.79 or something like that. So pitchers know ERAs are really important. And while Texas Tech lost, they gave it a heck of a ride. And Nija also has a signature cleat that she has out as part of her NIL deal. And she was just drafted by, I believe it was the Texas Volts in the
Yep.
Women Professional League. So those kind of exciting things. Texas Tech also, I got to say it, they grabbed one of my UCLA Bruins, Caitlin Terry.
Yeah.
Caitlin Terry is the Shohei Ohtani of women's college softball, pitcher, utility player. By the way, she's only a junior, so she'll be back next year with Texas Tech. Her ERA was 1.67. So you imagine these two women who are just incredible pitchers for Texas Tech. Again, they didn't win, but Texas Tech spent a little bit over $3 million on their NIL for their players, which is why they got the name the Villains. And Texas Tech beat my UCLA Bruins in 9 innings in an elimination game. That's one of the games of 4 they had to win. 9-inning game. And guess who got the winning hit? Of course, Caitlin Terry, former UCLA Bruin, now Texas Tech Red Raider. One thing that's funny about that game, the sprinklers went on like in the 7th inning. And I've had a few games where that's happened. All of a sudden, the sprinklers just go on. And so everybody's kind of, what do we do? Figure about a 5-10 minute delay. They figured it out, and they got through it. But exciting time there. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention, and it's not just because I'm a Bruin, well, maybe a little bit, young woman named Megan Grant.
Yep.
And if you don't know
She
Megan
hit the
Grant,
home run.
you need to look her up. Megan Grant, I want to say, is the Deion Sanders of college softball. What do I mean by that? Those of you know Deion Sanders played for the Atlanta Braves, played for the 49ers, played for the Falcons, 2 sports as a pro. Megan Grant was a point guard on the UCLA national champion women's basketball team this year. She had to leave the team early because softball's her passion, and she went and played for the Bruins softball team. Megan hit 42 home runs this year, which is the all-time NCAA women's softball home run record. And so proud of her for that, again, as a Bruin. But just as a person, she's a wonderful person and just had an incredible season. And then there was Jordy Fromm from Nebraska, who's the 2026 USA Softball Collegiate Player of the Year. And Jordy led Nebraska. It's the first time the Nebraska women's program, not only did they win the Big Ten championship for softball and women, first time in 12 years that they've actually been to the Women's College Softball World Series. So there's so many great stories. And then I would be absolutely criminal if I didn't mention University of Texas and Tegan Cannon and a young lady who's a junior who's led the Longhorns to the national championship the last 2 years with an 8-1 record in the Women's College World Series, and both years as the outstanding player. So it was just an incredible World Series. My Bruins gave it everything they had, but there's so much talent. And when you look at the diamond, the bases are 60 feet. That pitching mound's really close. That ball's coming in there, and it's just amazing. These women and female athletes, and so proud of what they're doing. Texas spent a little bit under $2 million on their NIL. So between the top two, it was a little bit less than $5 million in NIL revenue. So again, but remember, NIL revenue doesn't always win championships. Now you can say, well, the Dodgers won it the last 2 years. Yeah, but the Yankees built teams before, and that didn't happen. And so have other pro teams. So that's not always the secret sauce or the ingredient, if you will. I'll tell you though, what was really exciting, again, disappointing as a Bruin, because I mean, when you go into the men's college baseball World Series ranked number 1, you're kind of thinking, I'm at least going to get to Omaha. I'm going to get there, at least get there. I may not, but I'm going to, because I have to tell you, you're looking at the bracket and you're thinking, I got these teams. They're not going to. Wild, this is with the wild, my opinion, wildest regional slate in NCAA baseball tournament history. You're saying, why do you say that? Because only 9 of the 16 national seeds went to the super regional. That means they didn't even get out of what I call the first round of the playoffs. The top 2 teams, UCLA and Georgia, they got knocked out.
Wow.
UCLA got beat by St. Mary's. Now, I love St. Mary's. I don't live very far from St. Mary's. I love St. Mary's College. Great basketball program. I didn't know they had a good baseball team. By gosh, congratulations to that team. So they knocked out UCLA, and that was disappointing and sad. But we have, what's exciting about baseball, the team with the best record doesn't always win.
That's right.
It's the momentum, it's your talent, it's your teamwork, it's your focus, it's your trust, as Corey Close, UCLA women's basketball coach, would say. We have 8 new teams, and when I say 8 new teams, 8 teams in the Men's College World Series that were not in the World Series last year. How exciting is that? And by the way, one team lost 30 games. We've never had a 30-loss team in the Men's College World Series. Troy University, God bless. I just think that's awesome. That's what sports is about. The underdog, never giving up. Your integrity, your character, your discipline, your wisdom. Keep building. And we're going to see some great games when they start. And I'm going to go out on a limb here. I'm going to predict Mississippi as the champion. And the reason is they have 3 great starting pitchers and they have a 1-2 bullpen punch. And I think that could be the difference. I think pitching in these situations is a big deal. And I also want to acknowledge that Georgia, who I believe was the number 3 ranked team in the country, this is their first College World Series since, I think it's 2008. So what, 18 years? And then Alabama, everybody thinks Alabama is a football school. Well, right. Alabama made it. This is their first trip since 1999. So again, the excitement around these 8 teams that weren't in it last year, the 30-loss Troy University, the teams, Georgia and Alabama, that haven't made it for years, it's going to be an exciting run. And I can't wait till when we have our next discussion to give just a 2 or 3 minute update on what we're doing there. So I don't know if there's any questions or we have any questions on the softball or baseball World Series, but I'm just so excited about what I saw and watched in all of these games, both the women's World Series and the men's regional and super regionals leading up to the World Series.
Yeah,
we got awesome. Brian's chiming in, saying "Go Dogs!" So let's go, Georgia.
So I wanted to transition then into the landscape today as it relates to what's going on legislatively with name, image, and likeness revenue sharing. There was 2 pieces of legislation, and again, like I said, I want this to be more of a dialogue than a monologue, but I want to get this in a little bit if I can. So there was a Republican-sponsored bill called the Student Compensation and Opportunity Through Rights and Endorsement, SCORE Act. Great acronym, love that, easy to remember. That did not even get to the House floor for a vote. That was about a month ago. It had some things that people liked, some things people didn't like. And then about 3 weeks ago, the Protect College Sports Act was introduced, a bipartisan piece of legislation by Senator Ted Cruz of Texas, Maria Cantwell of Washington, and then some co-sponsors, Eric Schmidt out of Missouri, who's a Republican, and Chris Coons out of Delaware, who's a Democrat. I believe Senator Schmidt played baseball as well, so he's got some sports background. But it's more of a bipartisan effort. And then on June 3rd, a week ago today, they held a hearing in the Senate Commerce Committee where it was mostly positive. It was mostly supporters. Nick Saban was there and spoke, one of the most recognized figures, what's going on in college athletics today. Pete Bavacqua, who's oddly enough, used to work at NBC Sports, is now the athletic director at Notre Dame. There was a Pac-12 commissioner, Teresa Gould, and a couple of student athletes. But I wanted to highlight the difference between the SCORE Act and the Protect College Sports Act, and then I dive into the Protect College Sports Act. So in the SCORE Act, there was broad antitrust immunity to the NCAA, essentially unconditional immunity. A lot of people didn't like that. In the Protect College Sports Act, the antitrust immunity is limited. It's limited to you have to follow what the Protect College Sports Act says, or you don't get the immunity. So it's more conditional than unconditional, which was the other one. A lot of people didn't like that. Then in the SCORE Act, the student athlete, not an employee, not even discussion. We're not going to talk about student athletes can't be an employee. The Protect College Sports Act is really silent on student athlete and employee, student athletes, employee status. And I'll tell you, it's my opinion that the question of revenue sharing athletes as employees is one of the most consequential unresolved issues today in college sports, because that debate's going to go on. And then lastly, the difference was one of the bigger ones. The SCORE Act said you can't have collective bargaining at all. Not possible. We don't want it. We're not going to support it. And the Protect College Sports Act is silent on collective bargaining. And so, but that's got a few labor unions and others saying we're not going to support it unless that's addressed. So I wanted to highlight those differences because I thought that was important. I don't know if there's any questions, Thomas. I keep going. I was going to go through the main points of the College Sports Act and then talk about who's supporting it.
No, we actually have a couple of questions coming through. Question one is a high school athlete. I'm a high school athlete being recruited right now. Does the Protect College Act affect me before I even get to college? Should I be paying attention to this during my recruitment?
We always want to pay attention to anything that goes on as it relates to name, image, and likeness, revenue sharing, dealing with the house settlement, particularly with high school athletes or anyone else. One of the things that's to make sure people understand that's in this act. And so, yes, I think they should be tracking it, should be monitoring and watching it because it has some nuances and some changes. But for high school athletes, your high school athletic association also has guidelines that relate to name, image, and likeness that you need to make sure that you understand in different states about what you can and can't do. So, but for example, I'll tell you one of the biggest things that the Protect College Sports Act talks about. First of all, it wants to deal with the salary cap of players, limited antitrust protection, which I previously mentioned, and NIL regulation to codify some of the things in the House settlement case.
Right.
But with the Protect College Sports Act, it modifies the Sports Agent Responsibility and Trust Act. So it wants to take sports agents, and this is one of the big discussions in name, image, and likeness NIL right now, because in pro sports, NFL, MLB, NHL, sports agents have to be certified by the Players Association. Well, because we don't have collective bargaining in college sports, there's no certification for agents right now. So there's a lot of agents out there that aren't doing things in the best interest of student athletes and their families. But I work with a lot of agents, and all the ones that we work with, they do a great job. They are very respectful, mindful of their student athletes and their families. But one of the things that this act would do, it would limit agent fees to 5% of an endorsement contract. A lot of agents right now in the collegiate space are charging 20, 30%, which is much higher than what the professional leagues charge. Is 5% the number? I think it's a little low, and here's why. It takes a lot of time to secure a brand endorsement deal, to contact the brand, to negotiate the brand, to ensure your student athlete has the right contract, and then make sure they follow through and they're compliant on the terms. And so I think the 5% is a little bit low. I think we should have a further discussion of what that should be based on the individual's time in securing a particular deal. The other thing it does is it requires a registry in the states where the athlete plays. So almost like a certification of compliance effort, if you will, which I do support because I think we do have to have some certification. I mentioned this previously. We have to have a license to drive. We have to have a license to give CPR. You have to be trained and certified. We almost have license requirements and certification for various other professions in sports. Why not have something like that requirement either on a state or national level for agents? So that's one thing it does. Then athlete transfer and eligibility. So this is trying to stop the madness of the transfer portal. And so the Protect College Sports Act essentially would say you get a one-time transfer allowed without loss of eligibility. One time,
Awesome.
not the way it is now. If you want a second transfer, you want to transfer a second time, you got to sit out a year. That's kind of what it's proposing. And there's pros and cons. Some people like it, some people don't. Now, if the head coach leaves or your sport is eliminated, like some sports have been eliminated with NIL and revenue sharing, then you'll probably get more than one. You will get more than one transfer, and that's essentially what the legislation calls out. Eligibility. This has been a big discussion. How many years do you get? Well, under the Protect College Sports Act, it would really allow 5 years maximum, 5 years of eligibility, 5 calendar years, and so it really wants to limit what that eligibility looks like. It limits what they call midseason coaching changes, i.e., the Lane Kiffin rule out of Mississippi. If you know, Coach Kiffin went from Mississippi to LSU before their college football playoff, created all kinds of chaos. So they're basically saying it bars coaches from leaving their team before the season ends. But I want to point out, this is only for football bowl subdivision, just FBS teams, not other college teams or sports. And then one of the other big ones, and then I'll stop here for questions before I hit last ones, media rights and broadcasting. So this is a big topic right now, multimedia right partners and media rights. So this act would permit pooling of media rights if 75% of a football bowl subdivision schools agree, and it's voluntary. So there's 138 schools right now in FBS. If 102 of them agree to this, then you can pool the media rights. If they don't, and you have to have 75%, then you can't. The other thing it does, it precludes creation of a super league. There's been a big discussion about the Big Ten and the SEC pulling out of the NCAA and forming their own league. Well, this legislation says if $1 billion or more, which the Big Ten and SEC are $1 billion or more, you can't create that super league, and so a lot of people like that because they don't like the concept of super leagues. They like the idea of regional leagues. The original Pac-12, for example. A lot of people are still upset that the Pac-12, as we know it today, is a little different, and it disbanded, if you will. And then one of the other ones that's been a big topic is it prohibits professional athletes from playing college sports. There's been cases back and forth, some allowing some not. NBA, G League, playing overseas. Well, now it's basically saying if you played professional sports, you can't play in college, except if you only played for prize money. So if like you're a tennis player and you play in a tournament just for prize money, you could still play in college. That would mean you're safe. And then it talks about revenue sharing and the cap, what they want to do with the cap. Right now, the cap's at 20.5. It goes to 21.3 this coming year, 4% annually. They want to set some reasonableness on the cap to stop people from doing what's happening today, where teams are spending way above the cap. Like, for example, some schools are spending $40 or $50 million on their football team this coming season. They want to try to stop some of that. It really codifies a lot of the name, image, and likeness rights from the House settlement, and it requires agreements over 600 to be disclosed in 30 days, which is a little different from today, which is that agreements over 600, between over 600 and 2,500, to be reported in 5 days, and then there's a review period based on the amount that an athlete signs per academic year, which is now up to 15,000. And then this one, I know you two will really like, Aaron and Thomas. It creates an athlete health, wellness, and safety standards. And I actually really like this one as well, because this is what it does. It includes $60 million in injury insurance for each academic year. It's not just a one-time $60 million. Each academic year, there has to be $60 million in an injury insurance fund. And then I really like this part. It provides for medical coverage 5 years after a player's eligibility ends, because God bless, some of these players have injuries and there's no coverage when their eligibility runs out. This will allow them to be covered. There's other issues like creates a student athlete ombudsman, protection for women's and Olympic sports, and recruitment and tampering, which is somewhat widespread. A lot of teams are, when someone enters the transfer portal or right before, they start emailing, texting people, and hey, what did they offer you, and start tampering. But again, the one thing it doesn't address, it's silent on, which is a big topic, is collective bargaining or the status of an athlete as an employee. Because when those two things were outlined in the SCORE Act, they were on arrival, they were never going to pass, and so that was really critical to a lot of people. And there's mixed. It's a mixed bag right now. There's negotiations going on. In fact, there were all today or yesterday with the Big Ten and the SEC, and Senators Cruz and Cantwell, and I believe Senator Schmidt was in that discussion about some of the changes they'd like to see. President Trump has said he supports it. This is what's interesting. So you got the Power Four conferences: the ACC, the Big 12, Big 10, and the SEC. The ACC and Big 12 thumbs up, support it. The Big 10 and the SEC said no, and they have their various reasons. And then, of course, Coach Saban supports it. But the opposition, it's an interesting case because you need 60 votes. 53 Republican, 47 Democrats is the division right now. And you've got some serious opposition. Senator Chris Murphy, Democrat out of Connecticut, said he's concerned, not sure he's going to support it. But here's the big one. Senator Tommy Tuberville out of Alabama, who was the head coach at Auburn, has said he's got issues. He's a Republican. So how does that weigh the balance of getting to 60? The Congressional Black Caucus is absolutely against it, and 4 of their members are senators. And so they've got issues related to the Voting Rights Acts and some things that are going on outside of sports, but they have strong concerns. And then there's labor leaders and groups like athletes.org, which represent student athletes, and athletes.org does a great job. So that's a lot there. There's so many things going on. This is why I always say name, image, and likeness changes every second, every minute of every day, because tomorrow there'll be probably revised language in the bill. Some things will be cut out and some things will be kept. But it's time, as somebody who's been part of drafting legislation, who's been part of negotiating legislation, this is where you really get in with your hands and really try to figure out what's best for everyone. And we have to always keep in mind integrity, character, discipline, wisdom, and what's in the best interest of student athletes and their families. Because a lot of times in this conversation, the student athlete has been left out of the discussion, and we never want to see that happen.
Yep. Johnny, we got a question. This one's from a coach. Who actually enforces the Protect College Act? Is it the NCAA, federal government, individual schools? And what happens to the programs when they don't comply?
It will be, right now the proposals have the NCAA do it, or a similar like-minded organization that would do that. I think that's one of the things they're looking at, is the enforcement part. As an official, I have a rule book, I have regulations I follow, I have enforcement power on certain things. One of the questions today is there really enough enforcement? We have rules, but are we really enforcing them? Are people really following them? So the idea here is hopefully to codify some of the things that were in the House settlement to really get a greater authority on, let's enforce some of these rules, rather that be the NCAA, the College Sports Commission, or another entity, to give them some more teeth. I think that's why they want the antitrust exemption or some limited form of it, because they want to be able to do things without lawsuits being filed every time they turn around. And right now we keep running to the courthouse with everything. I mean, there are cases all the time popping up. And so at some point we've got to stop doing that. I mean, the Brandon Sorsby case is a great example. Is the NCAA made a decision and said, Mr. Sorsby, you gambled on your own team. That's a violation. You can't do it. And what did they do? They ran to the courthouse They ran to Lubbock County, Texas. Guess what? Guess where Texas Tech is? It's in Lubbock County. You got a friendly judge. You know what? I love judges. Judges are impartial, and they should be. And we have some great judges all over the place, very good ones. And I know a judge interprets the rules as they see it. And I'm good with that. But it's like this. And I know someone had asked earlier, we're going to get to Brendan Sorsby, and God bless him. You know, I care for him as a person. Mental health is a big issue for me, and I know, Thomas, for you and Aaron. So I am concerned about his mental health as it relates to gambling. Gambling is a disease. It's like alcoholism and everything else, in my opinion. Not a doctor, but that's what I believe. And so, but like driving under the influence, everybody knows you don't bet on your own team. Everybody knows you don't drive under the influence. So I'm having a hard time understanding how he thought it was okay to bet on his own team. And not only that, then he had friends bet for him in their name. Okay. So now I think you got cognitive intent. Okay.
Yes.
Now you're aware of what you're doing, right? So now is it malice aforethought? What is it? And so there's that discussion. Well, lo and behold, the judge says, sorry, NCAA. They propose a 2-game suspension. We're going to agree to that, and he can play, and he doesn't have to sit out. Now, here's the problem. Okay. You probably already heard about the Chauncey Billups case, which Chauncey Billups, coach of Portland Trail Blazers, who the FBI investigated, and Terry Rozier for some illegal gaming, doing prop bets on their own games. They're no longer in the NBA. This is an older one. There was a NBA basketball official named Tim Donaghy. He betted on games that he officiated in the NBA. Guess what? He's no longer an NBA official because you can't do that, right? And then there's the whole Pete Rose situation. And I know there's 50-50 split on Pete Rose. The fact is he bet on his teams. MLB said, you're done. Yep. So we have to draw the line. And again, I don't want to diminish Mr. Sorsby's illness because I didn't get into the illness. And God bless him that he went and got help. And we need to continue to encourage and support him. So after his sport days, he knows, hey, I can't put my family in this financial position. But dog, there's rules. I'm sorry, there's rules. And everyone knows if you drink and drive, you're going to prison. You're done because you could kill somebody. This is the same thing. Are you kidding me? You're going to bet on your own team?
Right.
Whether you're playing or not? As an official, you're going to fix a game that you're officiating? No. As a basketball coach, you're going to give people inside information on when people get hurt so they can make bets? No. This is not how this should be done. Sports has to be, I call it the golden dome. You get on the field, everything is pure, and I know it's not, and I'm not trying to live in a world that I know that doesn't happen. But doggone it, I think we got to have lines. I mean, we got to say, you know what? We're not going to, because you know what? The backlash right now, there are teams saying we're not playing Texas Tech. And so what's the solution? This is what Johnny Perkins would do. If I was the commissioner of the Big 12, I'd say he's done. Sue me. Mm-hmm. If I was the NCAA, I'd say he's done. Sue me. I would do a joint press conference between the two and say, you know what? We understand court rulings, but you know what? Mr. Sorsby, you're done. And if you want to sue us, we're going to get an injunction against your injunction. And that's, I think, what should be done there. But again, I don't want to minimize Mr. Sorsby and what he's dealing with. I've never had that issue. I understand the mental health because I have had those, and that gets right to me. But I think the gambling is just it's a bad look, and it's I don't think my best example is that DUI. Everybody knows you drink and get behind the wheel. We're taught very young, and when you're first in driver's education, don't do it.
Right.
And with so much temptation with gambling, I mean, you go on your computer and it pops up as an ad. You're watching a sporting event and it pops up. I'm not going to mention any companies because they do good work and they're legitimate. But doggone it, man, it's It's like the old days when they were selling cigarettes on TV and radio and billboards, and we had to eliminate that because of the health concerns. So I think it's a conversation that's going to continue. I just hope Mr. Sorsby continues to work through some of his issues, and the NCAA finds a way to remedy this, so everybody else knows. If you gamble on your own team, whether you're playing or not, you're done. End of story. There's not even a debate. That's it.
I totally agree. And as far as my opinion goes on Brendan Sorsby, whether or not the bottom line is he has a responsibility to step down because the sport and the team and the university is bigger than him. And right now he's drawn a lot of negative attention to what his choices were. So if he wants to be a good man of character, integrity, and discipline, step away, just focus on your health. And then, you're still going to get invited to a combine. It might be an uphill battle, but let me tell you something. The NFL doesn't want somebody. Johnny, you probably remember Art Schulster, I believe his name was, out of Ohio State, probably 30, 40 years ago.
Ohio State, number 10.
Yep. He had a gambling problem too. So it's not isolated to just college athletes. It goes into the pros as well. And you kind of touched on that. So I hope he gets the help he needs, and I hope he does step down.
Well, and I just had 2 cents. Well, I was just going to say more from a team perspective. How does that enhance your team if you're Texas Tech, if you have somebody that bets against their own team? Like, why would you want that in your locker room leading your team as a quarterback? Like, at what point talent does not supersede, I think, morality and character. So I think it's also a Texas Tech issue as well.
It is, and again, I don't want to bring money into this, but we have to talk about that aspect of collegiate sports today because there's a lot of it. He was paid $5 million, from Texas Tech to come from Cincinnati, ladies and gentlemen. So again, whether you're paid $5 or $5 million, you have a fiduciary responsibility to your institution. I'm going to go back to the 4 words again: to show integrity, character, discipline, and wisdom. Mm-hmm. That's what's right here. People look at the outward appearance, but God looks at the heart. And that's what we're talking about. What does your heart say about who you are? And we all struggle. We all do. But you've got to make sure you're looking to get the help you need. But like I said, the things he did, having his friends place bets in his name, that's somebody that it's a malice of forethought, had an intent and knew, well, I can't be placing all these, so I'm going to have my 5 buddies do it. And I just, to me, that was the threshold where I said, he can't be on the football field again, at least at the collegiate level.
I agree. All righty, moving on. Let's get into some questions here. We kind of knocked out that out. Let's go, Brendan. Just a little play on words. What are the top 3 red flags in the NIL contract that tell you immediately this deal is either predatory or problematic? What should athletes never sign without getting reviewed?
I was just going to go into contracts, and I was going to start off with sometimes telepathically there's things that just happen. If you ever see the word perpetuity, exclusivity, or irrevocability, so you asked for 3, I've got more, but I'll just start with those 3. You need to throw the red flag, or as I've always said, the yellow flag. If you're a Canadian official, I believe they use red, but and all due respect to my friends from the North, they do a great job too, by the way. I'd love to do a game there. Sorry, I digress. That would be awesome to do one time, but no, I think those 3 words, perpetuity, which is forever, exclusivity, which means you can't work with another brand, and irrevocability, you can't make any changes. I think those things are important. I think understanding the terms and conditions, what are the expectations? Always have a legal counsel. I'm not a lawyer. I know how to negotiate a contract pretty well. I remember negotiated a $1.4 billion agreement with 26 labor unions, which was madness, getting all these people together. But it can be done. But I had lawyers with me to make sure I wasn't stepping out of bounds. So I can negotiate. I can manage a contract. I can make sure that the deliverables make sense to the person that you're representing. Preserve your rights. You want to make sure that you do that. And anything that reserves the brand's right to use your content in the future, don't allow that. Don't allow it. It's, if you're under contract, great. Once you're under contract, they can't use that anymore. And I think you need to hold to that very strongly. And then I'm really a believer in this. I'm a believer in analytics to track performance. You got to have deliverables, and you got to understand what your responsibilities are and what your partners are. And I mean partner in a sense. When you sign a contract, it's a partnership, but both sides have to fulfill the partnership and make sure when payment terms are agreed upon, the payment comes. The payment comes. I used to work for a company that didn't pay its consultants and vendors until 87 days. I don't know, 87 meant something. I can't remember it today now, but it was 87 days before their consultants got paid. You can't believe how many phone calls I got. Where was that in the contract? Well, it was kind of buried a little bit. It didn't say 87, but it implied 2 months. But just be mindful of those payment terms and how those work.
Awesome. Most athletes signed what's put in front of them. What are the terms that are actually negotiable in an NIL contract? What should athletes be pushing back on?
I've always said everything's negotiable, and the word no doesn't exist, and I don't know the definition of maybe. I think anytime somebody wants to warehouse their rights to your performance, first of all, you can't do that under the name, image, and likeness with the College Sports Commission and the NIL Go platform. It's prohibited to warehouse. It's what the judge ruled in the Nebraska football players case against Playfly, that they were warehousing those players' rights to use their name, image, and likeness at another time. There was no plan for valid business purpose. And don't ever agree to that. Don't ever say, well, I'll sign and you can use my name at some other time when you're ready. No, we're going to have a defined period of when this happens, because you're going to grow your brand. And so you want to make sure that those terms, first of all, you can't do it anyway, but you want to push back on that. You want to push back on one-sided contracts where one side has all the power and you do not. You want to push back on anything that gives sole discretion to, I'll call it the brand, to edit things that you do. No way. Anytime they want to edit, modify something, there has to be an agreement in writing together that you're going to do that. And that's the thing about negotiations. The best partners are ones that you can trust. And I don't want to over or underestimate the word trust. Trust in contract negotiations is key. When I was in the sector, there were some companies, organizations we didn't want to do business with. You know why? Because we didn't trust them. They weren't good partners for us. And you know what? You don't have to sign every deal. Believe it or not, you really don't. You sign a deal that works best for you and your family and what your brand is and what your goal is for what you want to see yourself doing, and that you trust somebody. And I think that's really important.
That's perfect. John, the next question is, a lot of NIL contracts require athletes to post on social media, specific language, specific frequency, specific content. What happens if an athlete posts something that goes against the contract? What's the liability?
Yeah, there's some challenges there. And that's why you want to. There could be some liability there. You want to make sure that when you're required to do a post or some type of appearance or some type of other endorsement, that you're following the terms as outlined in the contract. And I always say 4 eyes is better than two. And as an official, it's like, well, and by the way, I don't wear glasses when I'm officiating because I can see. It's this funny thing. I can see down the field and across, and I don't wear them when I'm umpiring baseball either. But sometimes when you're close up, I need to put them on. But when I say 4 eyes is better than two, have multiple parties read the contract, but then have multiple parties review what your content is before it goes out, or at least one other person say, hey, this is what I'm sending out. What do you think? It doesn't take that long. If you have things set up systematically, you can have them do that. You always want to look at the contract and make sure you're abiding by the terms. So the other party doesn't say, well, you know what? That's not what we agreed you would post. You went outside what our brand message is, and now you've damaged our reputation as a brand, and we have some concerns with that. So always make sure that you're being mindful. Remember, the 1 second rule. I have a 1 second rule before I call a ball or strike, make an out or safe call, or throw a penalty on the football field, or call a charge or block or a foul. I run, and you say, well, how can you have a 1 second rule? I run it through my head really quick, 1 second, and I know, is it a ball strike? Is it a pass interference? Or is that a foul? And if it's not, the whistle doesn't blow, the flag doesn't come out, and the arm doesn't go out for a strike. I think it's the same thing here. Take a look at something, take a deep breath. Sometimes it's the 24-hour rule, and then you send it out. But please be mindful, because words matter. Words matter, and if you send out the wrong communication, someone's going to misinterpret it. Then the brand's going to be upset. I would even suggest, we've done this with some of our student athletes, have the brand take a look at it. I don't have a problem with that. Brand takes a look. Yeah, that's great. They go, wow, that's pretty good stuff. And so again, now you have them say, oh, yeah, that's great. We do support that, and are grateful that you're putting that out for us.
That's awesome. Yeah, one of the things Aaron and I talk to about our clients and families, stay away from the 3 Ps, or actually stay away from foreign politics and post with purpose, right? So it's always important to just err on the side of being safe and caution. Johnny, I'm heading to Omaha, and I'm from this little town in Oxford. Okay, we gave that one away. A brand has been reaching out as we head to Omaha during the tournament, and they want a quick deal. They want us to post during the game, mention the product in interviews. What's the athlete's protocol? What do they do in the next 24 hours? This is interesting.
So I would get that information together, get it submitted to the NIL Go platform as soon as you can, and then follow up with them to get their concurrence. If you know now that that's going to potentially happen, I would get that information in now and have them take a look at that. So, because a lot of times they may take long. Usually they're supposed to get things within 24 hours. Sometimes it takes 3 days for approval. Sometimes it takes longer, depending on how complicated the deal is. But get that information to them as soon as you can about what's going to take place, and have someone make a phone call or communicate with them about getting that approval as soon as possible.
Awesome. Johnny, while we're on the subject, the spotlight during the College World Series is intense for these young men. National TV, social media scrutiny, massive pressure. How do athletes protect their mental health during a week when NIL, performance pressure, and public attention are all covered at once?
You have to have what I call quiet time with just you. Sometimes that's recharging yourself, and sometimes it's taking a walk while you're listening to music, doing a quick jog while you're listening to music, finding a quiet place and just reading your favorite book, and sometimes a quiet place reading a passage from the Bible. I mean, I just, there's oftentimes things you can do just to not de-escalate, but bring that level of intensity and attention down. And a lot of times great coaches and good coaches will get teams together, and they'll have that time where they can spend a few minutes just decompressing, to use that term, as to how they deal with this, because the spotlight and the pressure gets more intense as you win more games and you get to that final two. The spotlight is really going to be on those student athletes and their families for not only their performance, but people wanting to get a hold of them to brand them through name, image, and likeness, other universities looking to secure them through a revenue sharing deal. And at that point, I wouldn't deal with any revenue sharing. Just concentrate on where you are in that particular moment and enjoy the moment. Oftentimes, we don't enjoy those moments. I mean, there's so many moments I can tell you, boy, if I could have back, just to try to enjoy those a little more, because they're fleeting and they go by fast.
No doubt. No doubt. This is from a coach in the SEC. We're seeing the athletes use NIL deals as leverage in the transfer portal. Is this legal? And what's the line between a school facilitating NIL to attract a transfer and straight up pay for play?
Thomas, read that one more time. I didn't catch the last part.
No problem.
Sorry.
It's a coach from the SEC. We're seeing athletes use NIL deals as leverage in the transfer portal. Is this legal? What's the line between a school facilitating NIL to attract a transfer and straight up pay to play?
Yeah, I think you need to be careful about anything that's going on in the transfer portal as it relates to offering. This is what goes back to that whole restrictions and tampering section that they want to highlight in the Protect College Sports Act, about doing anything while someone's in the transfer portal, making certain offers. Someone may try to leverage name, image, and likeness to say, well, if you come here, we're going to be able to add X amount of dollars. And then they use that and go back to the other team and leverage that dollar amount to get more from the team that they're wanting to depart from. That's pre-transfer portal. Once you're in that transfer portal, then a lot of things happen. But that restriction and tampering, you just want to be really, really careful. But when you're in the transfer portal, you can make offers on certain things, on what you want to do in terms of revenue sharing and potential NIL deals that will support that student athlete.
Awesome. Johnny, we got some questions from parents. Johnny, you've been a college sport official for years. From that vantage point, what do you see athletes doing that puts them at risk, as they have absolutely no idea what they're doing?
I think it's listening to all the hyperbole that's out there in the news media, and listening to all the different variations of what people are being offered through NIL and revenue sharing, and really bringing it down to a level that, hey, this may or may not be for me, and not everyone is going to get those kinds of dollars, but there are opportunities out there. But just be careful with who you're talking to and what they're telling you and what promises or commitments they're making, because oftentimes we've seen someone's told, hey, if you go into the transfer portal, I can go get you to this place with this amount. And then you get in the portal and all of a sudden the amount you thought you were getting isn't there and doesn't exist. And I think that's the same. High school athletes are being approached all over the place now about going to different high schools and what their presence could mean to that particular school, and try to leveraging some name, image, and likeness for them. And just be careful about who you're talking to and who's advising you.
Got it. This is from a dad. Johnny, right now in June 2026, what's the single biggest threat to college athlete eligibility that isn't getting enough attention? What should everyone in the room be worried about?
I think the transfer portal is one in terms of eligibility. I also believe making sure that you're not compromising anything that you're doing as it relates to the marketing and branding of yourself on social media, that you're not compromising or disrupting what the requirements are of your university, college, or in some cases, high school, because you could lose eligibility if you're not following certain rules as they relate to name, image, and likeness.
Awesome. Awesome. Aaron, we got a question for you. You talk about character being the kind of person pressure reveals. Championship week is the ultimate pressure test. What does that actually look like for an athlete who has trained their character versus one who hasn't?
Well, what I would say it looks like is you trust who you are and you know who you are. So you know how you're going to show up in those moments. And so the athletes that typically perform, they know who they are. They show up, but they're all so detached from the outcome because we know we're not going to always be perfect. And so it's that resiliency, whether it's making the next play, catching the next ball, hitting, okay, you swung or you struck out at your first time at bat. Well, guess what? You're going to be back up again. Are you going to make the most of that next opportunity? And so for me, it's a resiliency of a mindset of knowing who you are, trusting who you are, and being completely detached from the outcome because you trust in yourself.
That's awesome. Another one for you. Walk us through how each pillar of the caddy framework applies to NIL decisions. Like, what does accountability over excuses look like when an athlete makes a bad NIL deal? What does integrity over image look like when a lucrative deal conflicts with their values?
I think I'm going to kind of say the same thing, and it's really simple, but you have to keep coming back to you. So when you think about accountability you have to take radical ownership. You can't point outward like they did this or they did that. You have to look at yourself and go, where in that moment did I make a choice to go along with maybe the bad choice or whatever they were selling me in that moment, or choosing something that's not in alignment with you for money. You get to live with that decision every day. Nobody else is living with that decision except you. And so it's also having implicit faith and trust in I'll say God, because that's what I believe, that he's going to take care of you. So if that isn't the right deal for you, the right deal is going to come along. And so you never want to be chasing the deals for money. You want to be chasing the deals that represent you. But I wouldn't even say chase. You want to be attracting the like-minded people that think that you do. So finding brands that represent you, that you've researched, that you love, that doing whatever it is you're being asked to do doesn't even feel like work because it's just so a part of who you are. It'd be like, I like cinnamon toothpaste. I'm kind of a weird girl. And so if I like cinnamon toothpaste, I'd love a Crest cinnamon toothpaste opportunity where I probably got my toothpaste for free forever. But I wouldn't have to like make an effort in order to do that because that's just me. I like it and who I am. And so this comes down to our caddy framework at Blueprint to Blue Chip is all about really honing in and you understanding who you are, staying in that compass of that identity and not allowing things that don't align with you to take you off track.
Awesome. Team, we've gone a sneak past 7:00. So this is going to be the final question for both of you. We're going to go with ladies first. And I'm going to have our guest Johnny close us out. For both of you, if every athlete, parent, and coach listening tonight could do one thing tomorrow morning to better protect their athlete in the current NIL landscape, what would that be? Aaron, we'll start with you.
Okay, mine's going to be simple. Not simple, probably the most complicated thing I'm going to give you. You got to help your athlete. You as an athlete, if you're listening, you've got to really get centered on who you are. So I'm going to steal something that Johnny said. Spend a little quiet time with yourself. Really think about who you are, who you want to be, and does every action you take move you towards that future? I say this all the time. You cannot negotiate with the future that you want. So if you want to be a doctor, don't negotiate. Have fun playing your sports while you're in college, but know that there's some bigger path for you and that's where you're headed. So really understand who you are before you're out making any type of decisions would be my one piece of advice. Spend 5 minutes with yourself and jot down some notes of what you learned in your quiet 5-minute experience with yourself.
Johnny, what would you say?
Be true to yourself. Educate yourself. Enjoy the moment of playing sports. And don't put that thought, oh, I've got to perform at this level or with these stats in order to get this name, image, likeness, revenue sharing deal, because you don't. The most successful student athletes are the ones that are still playing the game and having fun. And those are the ones, things are going to come to you. Don't be too over anxious. Remember the 1 second rule before you make a call. But enjoy it, educate yourself, and be true to who you are, because things will happen. They just will. They just have a tendency to work out.
I love it. I love it. The question was, if every athlete, parent, and coach listening to tonight could do one thing tomorrow morning to better protect their athlete in the current NIL landscape, you see that QR code? Take a photo of it and contact Aaron and myself tomorrow at blueprintbluechip.com, team. Johnny, who do you like in the NBA Finals? Who do you like tonight, and who do you think is going to take it?
I like the Spurs just because I'm a big Greg Popovich person, historically speaking. However, I think the Knicks may have a little bit more energy on that, and maybe the inexperience of San Antonio will come out. But here's the great thing about sports. You got to play, in this case, 48 minutes.
Right.
You got to play 48 minutes. You know how it works in the NBA? You can play 46 great minutes. And the last two, you're down by 6 and you lose. I mean, that's how it goes. But I'd like to see the Spurs because of Coach Popovich, but the Knicks, I think if the Knicks win tonight, that's probably done. If the Spurs win, then it's going to be a fun 2 out of 3.
That's awesome. Aaron, who do you like?
Oh, I'm going with the Spurs too. I like the Spurs, and I like Wimbiana. I think that kid's such a talent. I think he's going to be a generational talent. So I'm cheering on the Spurs.
Awesome. Well, for our fans north of the border, even though we don't have any Canadian teams in the Stanley Cup, who do you like, Johnny?
I kind of like the Vegas Knights.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think they again, sometimes even though you didn't finish number 1 in your division, you get into the playoffs and you have momentum. Sometimes that carries you forward. I think the Knights have some good momentum that's going to carry them forward.
Awesome. Aaron, who do you like?
Oh, this one's tough. I'm really enjoying this because it's like when we talk about the wild, wild west, I think every one of these games of hockey have been completely wild. The scoring, the goal, I mean, just like the fastest hat trick, the most number of goals in certain number of seconds. I'm like, whoa, what the heck is happening? So I kind of, I'm rooting for both teams, and I hope it goes to 7 games and maybe double overtime. But yeah, it's hard for me to pick one. It's just fun to watch right now. So keep it going.
Awesome. Johnny, where can people get a hold of you, whether it's a website, social media handles, or an email?
At Johnny Perkins Referee, at Johnny Perkins Referee. I'm on LinkedIn, johnnyperkins.com, jperk0307 at gmail.com, 0307 at gmail.com. Anytime, any questions, I will answer every question that comes forward. If I don't know the answer, I'll let you know. I will try to do my best to find it, but I love the dialogue, and I hope it continues. And I really appreciate this opportunity to spend this time, Aaron, with you and Thomas, as well as the audience. And hopefully this was helpful, and look forward to the continuation of what we're going to talk about next.
Yes. Yep. We'll be back next month. Be on the lookout.
Thank you, Blue. Thank you, Johnny. Thank you, Aaron. Thank you, team, for joining us. We invite all the questions, and we love the open discussion. Reach out to Johnny. We'll have his contact information in the show notes. And look forward to us. By the time the three of us get together again, probably in the next week or two, there's going to be a whole different landscape of NIL and the transfer portal. It's always evolving, it's always changing, and it's always being a dynamic force. So stick with us, team, for your latest information and news. We'll see you next time. Aaron, Johnny, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.